A long time ago, in a quaint and remote village surrounded by rolling hills and lush fields, there lived a humble farmer and his devoted wife. Their lives were defined by simple routines and the endless toil of working the land. Day after day, they would rise with the sun, tending to their small farm, planting seeds, plowing fields, and carrying water from the nearby stream to nourish their crops. Yet, despite their ceaseless labor, life had dealt them a heavy hand. The couple had no children, and their hearts ached with a deep, unspoken sorrow. Every evening, as they sat by the hearth in their modest home, they would glance at the empty corners of their house, yearning for the laughter of a child to fill their lives. One stormy night, when the wind howled like a chorus of restless spirits and rain lashed the earth, the farmer decided to check on his fields. As he walked through the muddy paths and slippery ground, he heard a faint, sorrowful sound piercing the storm, a baby crying. The farmer's heart raced as he searched the area, the rain soaking through his worn clothes. Near a small patch of grass, partially hidden beneath a tattered cloth, lay a tiny infant. The farmer gently picked up the child, feeling an inexplicable warmth and hope as he cradled the baby in his arms. Returning home, he showed the infant to his wife. Her eyes widened with surprise and joy, tears streaming down her cheeks. "This child, perhaps he is a gift sent to us," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. In that moment, a new chapter began in their lives. They decided to raise the boy as their own, nurturing him with love and care, filling the void that had haunted their hearts for so long. As the years passed, the boy grew into a strong, intelligent, and kind-hearted young man. Unlike other children in the village, who sometimes complained about work or shirked their responsibilities, he approached every task with diligence and patience. He helped his adoptive parents in the fields, plowing the soil, planting seeds, and carrying water from the well. His actions were quiet, humble, and consistent, yet they produced remarkable results. The crops in his care grew taller, stronger, and healthier than those of his neighbors. Grains were plump, vegetables were abundant, and his harvests were consistently bountiful. But human nature is often clouded by envy. The villagers, unable to comprehend the young man's success, grew increasingly jealous. Whispers of suspicion spread through the village. "He must be using tricks," some muttered. Others mocked him openly or sabotaged his work by breaking tools and trampling his crops when he was not looking. Yet the young man never retaliated. He remained calm, persevered in his efforts, and treated all villagers with respect, even those who harbored malice in their hearts. One year disaster struck. Heavy rains fell relentlessly for days, causing the river to swell and overflow its banks. Fields were submerged, crops ruined, and families left without food. Hunger and despair spread through the village, and children cried for sustenance. The villagers faced a crisis unlike any they had known. Among the devastation, there was one man whose foresight and discipline had preserved a small store of grain, the young farmer. Despite the hardships, he refused to hoard it for his own benefit. His heart, overflowing with compassion, would not allow him to leave others to starve. Under the cover of darkness, while the villagers slept unaware, he quietly prepared meals from his stored grain. He carried baskets of cooked food to each household, leaving them at the doors so that families could wake to a small blessing in the midst of disaster. Though many of the villagers continued to cast disparaging glances and hurl insults at him during the day, the young man's secret acts of kindness persisted, unseen, yet life-saving. One evening, as he rested under the shade of an old tree after a long day of labor, he reflected on the irony of his situation. He thought, does goodness invite cruelty? Why is kindness often met with hostility? His heart, tender yet resilient, bore the pain silently, holding on to the belief that virtue is its own reward. However, the truth could not remain hidden forever. Among the villagers was an elderly man, frail and unable to work the land as he once had, yet endowed with keen perception. He had observed the young farmer during those silent nights of generosity and realized the extent of his selflessness. Determined to reveal the truth, he stood before the village the following morning and addressed the crowd. "You call this young man a cheat and a liar, but do you know who has been sustaining your families in these days of hunger? It is he. Without his care, many of you would have faced despair and death. Open your eyes and recognize the truth." A hush fell over the village. Embarrassment, shame, and guilt filled the hearts of those who had mocked him. For the first time, they saw the young man not as a rival or a source of envy, but as a beacon of virtue. The story did not end there. One day, riders arrived bearing the royal seal. They announced that many years ago, the king and queen of a distant kingdom had lost their infant son during a violent storm. Despite searching relentlessly, they had never recovered the child until now. Following years of clues, the royal party had traced the prince to this very village. When the guards examined the young farmer, they found the birthmark described in royal records, the unmistakable sign of the lost prince. Overcome with emotion, the king and queen embraced him, tears streaming down their faces. The villagers, recalling their earlier mistreatment, bowed in fear and respect. Though the king's initial instinct was to punish those who had wronged his son, the young man intervened. "Father, mother," he said softly, "please do not harm them. If I could forgive the cruelty and malice shown to me, how can I turn vengeance upon them? Let us extend mercy instead." The king and queen were deeply moved by his words, recognizing that true nobility is measured not by power or title, but by the capacity for compassion and forgiveness. The villagers, witnessing such grace, wept openly, their hearts touched by the depth of his kindness. From that day onward, the young man was not only known as the heir to the throne, but also as the Prince of Mercy. His adoptive parents, the humble farmer and his wife, were honored for raising him with love and integrity, and they lived their remaining days in the royal palace. Surrounded by warmth and respect, the story of the young prince spread far and wide, teaching all who heard it that jealousy and cruelty may rise like temporary storms, yet they ultimately fade away. What remains, unshaken and eternal, is the light of kindness, the hope it nurtures, and the love it inspires. Through patience, selflessness, and forgiveness, true greatness is revealed, not through wealth or power, but through the enduring power of a gentle and generous heart.